Welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to do a quick analysis on the impact of AI on unemployment. Particularly, I'm going to go through the latest Fed notes. I'm going to look at the latest data, and we're going to see a very interesting correlation between AI exposure and unemployment rate. So first, I like to start with the broader markets. I usually look at the S&P 500, and we had an all-time highs last Friday. All-time highs, right? That was despite the fact that unemployment ticked up in August to 4.3%. However, that was still part of the consensus. So the consensus priced in that increase in unemployment. Now, looking at the Beige Book, this is from the Fed, and it was released earlier, at the end of August, so about 2 weeks ago. I really like the remarks on the labor market. So have a look what I highlighted there. It says, moreover, contracts in 2 districts reported an increase in layoffs, while contracts in multiple districts reported reducing headcounts through attrition, encouraged at times by return to office policies. This makes sense. If you have employees that are used to working from home and now you bring them to the office, they're going to quit, which makes complete sense. But they noted something very interesting. They said, and facilitated at times by greater automation, including new AI tools. By new AI tools, these are dinosaurs, the people who write these articles. So for them, new AI tools is freaking ChatGPT from 2023. They're new to their framework because possibly back then they thought this was a scam. Nobody was going to use it. It's just a search engine, and that's it. They have no clue that AI can replace any white-collar office job in the world. Any. Including sales. Now, let's focus now on the unemployment rate, because what I have here is the cohort between 16 and 24 years old. So here we have the data for August, which shows unemployment at 10.5%. Okay, I don't care about the value. I care about the increase from the all-time lows. In this case, all-time lows for the past 5 years. So if we look at 2023, the lowest unemployment in this age group was 6.6%. Okay, so that was really good. That was in mid 2023, and it increased to 10.5, which is an increase of 410 basis points. Okay, take that into consideration. Just try to remember that number. 410 basis points increase in unemployment in this cohort group. Let's look at the next cohort group, which is individuals between 25 and 54 that are based in the US. The lowest unemployment is approximately as well in August. In 2023. December 2022 seems to be the lowest point, 2.9. And we have now 3.6. So that's 70 basis points, right? 70 basis points. The cohort between 16 and 24, the increase was 410. So we're talking about a 7x increase, all right, in the younger population in unemployment than in the older population since 2023. And guess what happened in 2023? Well, AI. So it's not a coincidence. And in fact, if you look at the trend, you can see an acceleration, particularly in 2025. Do you see the slope of that curve? Hopefully you see it because I'm covering it. But that slope is growing, which means that unemployment is accelerating in this cohort. And that's extremely bullish for my bull case. I'll explain later on why. But let me go through the data. So if we have a look at the unemployment rate in high school graduates, all right, and these don't have a college degree, they just have a high school, and that's between 25 and over, so that's the cohort, you can see that the variation in unemployment between 2023 and now has barely increased. The lowest was 3.3 and now it's 4.3. That's 100 basis points. There was a spike. I don't know whether to take this data into consideration. If you look at 3.9, the month earlier, so in June, compared to now, that's 40 basis points. So it's pretty much in line with the overall group between 25 and 54. What's interesting is that if they had a bachelor degree, so these are educated individuals, let's not call them scammed individuals, even though I have a bachelor's in aeronautical engineering, so the first one is here. These guys, you can see that there is a clear increase in unemployment. Do you see it on the chart? I'm not sure if you see it because I'm around. Let me just move this, hopefully, there. Do you see what I mean? So that is ticking up. And the lowest in 23 was 1.9, and now is 2.7. So that's 80 basis points. So the increase in unemployment in people that have a degree that are aged between 25 and over is higher than in people that don't have a degree. Go figure. And when you look at seniors, individuals that have 55 years and over, unemployment indeed went up, from 2.4% to 2.9%. That's 50 basis points. It's nothing. It's nothing when you compare it to the 420 basis points that you see in the cohort between 16 and 24. So this is telling me, it's screaming at me, particularly the acceleration. So you can see the slope here. If that slope continues to go up, all right, that's the final signal that's telling me that, young entry-level applicants are cooked. Now, if we look at a very interesting report by the St. Louis Fed, all right, so this is not a random guy writing on a freaking blog post. This is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, all right? These guys did an analysis, and they did it recently. I'm talking about end of August this year. And they looked at correlation between AI and unemployment. So this chart is super interesting. What you see in the horizontal axis is the AI exposure rate. So the more to the right you go on this chart, the more AI exposure that particular industry has. So for example, computers and math naturally has the highest AI exposure because you can freaking replace these guys with a prompt. Who needs an entry level? Don't get me wrong. Advanced coders are still required, but entry-level ones, the ones that look for bugs or the ones that do some basic debugging or research, or you don't need that anymore, and that's reflected in the data. So you have computers and math, finance, you got office and admin, etc. And in the vertical axis, you have the percentage point in change in unemployment rate between 2022 and 2025. Interestingly enough, this is the same time frame that I showed in the chart below when you have that AI boom, right? When you have ChatGPT, Anthropic, even though who cares about the other tools, ChatGPT is the best one by far when it comes to analysis. When it comes to writing, you can use Claude because it's cheaper and it's a little bit more natural. Even though you can train your own model in ChatGPT, and your output, the output of your prompts are going to sound like you because you train it on your data. And I've done that, and it's absolutely fascinating to see how you copy this text, all right? You paste it into the new model, and the new model now talks exactly like you do, using the same expressions, the same tone, it's crazy, So anyways, back to the point, the higher in this chart, the more unemployment you have. Interestingly enough, you have, engineering, I'm in that sector, so I am cooked. You have then computers and math, arts, entertainment, and sports. I believe most of that, especially entertainment and sports, it's in the media. So you got business and finance. I am also cooked. And we have management. So the more high and the more to the right you are, the more cooked the sector is. You can see office and administration, by the way. The reason why it's so low, so it has a very high AI exposure because you can automate a lot of the stupid admin work that companies have. You can do that. However, the reason why unemployment went down in this, went down compared to architecture engineering, so it's not that high. It's simply because, in these sectors, especially if you are in admin, It requires to collaborate a lot with the entire organization. So unless you have an AI ecosystem that looks at all your departments and integrates all the data, you're not going to make critical decisions on your company based on, some tiptoeing with AI and see what happens. So that's why office and admin you don't see right now a tick in unemployment, because these are positions that, if you're administrating all the company, you better have an AI deployed in all your company, because otherwise it's unusable. All right, moving on, we have the BLS, the report for employment, the employment situation report for August. And what you see on this chart, you can see the unemployment rate, which is seasonally adjusted, by the way, between August 23 and August 25. So overall, the trend is ticking upwards. And it should, it doesn't make sense why it goes up, because consumer spending is going up. So how is it possible that you have an increase in spending but an increase in unemployment as well? It doesn't make sense. And the only logic that I find is AI adoption, particularly by corporations in the US, corporations like Salesforce. So we have the CEO going live on, I think it was a podcast earlier before they released earnings, 4,000 layoffs, right? And it turns out that during the interview, I think there was a Barrel Show podcast, apparently, he said, when he was discussing the impact of AI on Salesforce operations, he literally said, I've reduced it from 9,000 heads to about 5,000 because I need less heads. And, if you scroll down, you have, because I think this was the same CEO. Yeah, he was the same. So he said, because of the benefits and efficiencies of Agentforce, we have seen the number of support cases. By the way, this is their AI solution. The number of support cases that they handle decline, and they no longer need to actively backfill support engineer roles. So not only they're firing people, they don't absorb new employees. They don't need them because AI is doing the job for them. So what's the point? And then if you look at an earlier report, this was about 6 weeks before these statements, he's saying that AI is doing half of the work at Salesforce. So, if you're doing half of the work, you focus on the individuals that are redundant and you get rid of them. So this has a major impact on the Fed, and particularly on interest rates. So if you have a look at this chart, this is the consensus for the September 17th meeting. So far, the consensus is going for one rate cut. Yeah, so 89%, we're going to have a cut in September. And there is a 10% that's very optimistic. And they're like, okay, 2 rate cuts. Okay, I think that's way too optimistic. However, if we look by the end of the year, right? So by the end of the year, there is only 2% of economists pricing in only 1 rate cut. 2%. So it's very likely that the Fed rate is going to go down, maybe not just 1, but 2 times. And if it goes down 2 times, if it goes down just 1, it's going to be enough for the S&P to break all-time highs, because, as you can see in this chart, it has been struggling, since mid-August to break to new highs. I mean, to break significantly. I'm talking a breakout of 3%. That's a meaningful breakout. And usually when you have those breakouts, when you can see it here, when you have such a breakout, the stock just the index just rallies. So that's why it's important to have a look at what happens around September 17th. I believe until then, the S&P is going to stay, it's going to consolidate around the levels. And on the Fed announcement on September 17th, I foresee a big movement upward. Anyway, that's my prediction. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.